Hi everyone, it's Kim with Vintage Vikings and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on some Bohemian style tri-fold journaling spots, flip-flops. They're called all different types of things, but I went a little crazy with the lace pieces and the doilies and just had some fun with some solid cardstock that I don't use very often. And I thought I would come up with a project using just one piece of the 12 by 12 solid cardstock because I don't tend to use the solid scrapbook paper cardstock weight very often. So each one of these little packets, if you'll notice, is a large flip, a medium flip, and then this is a little page topper that would go in your journal on one of your journal pages like this, and it would just go nicely there. I guess you could do it sideways too with a little clip. That would work too. But this uses up almost the entire 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. All right, so let's get started. Let me move these out of the way. And today I tried to use very basic earth tone type pages because then they'll just go with almost any journal you're going to be working on. Or you could put these all together with maybe some tea-dyed paper tied together like a little stationery kit. That might be a nice idea as well. So let's see, we are going to pick out a color. And this is just a 12 by 12 textured cardstock that I got at a thrift store. So it was $10, looks like at maybe Walmart. And then I got it for $1.50 at a Goodwill or one of those type stores. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. You want to try not to go with something too dark because then the inside will make it more difficult to write in. I guess you could use a white marker or a black marker, and this one would work okay. But I tried to keep them light, so let's see what I've got left in here that's sort of light. Oh, we've already got a green. How about this? Let's see, what's this gold piece on the back? Yeah, that looks nice. It's like a gold, kind of a tan, brown gold. Alrighty. The one thing I did notice about using this cardstock is, and I don't think you can tell, you can see a little bit, it is a white core, so this definitely needs to be inked when you are working on it. Let's see if we can give a little bit more room to get rid of some of the shadows. Okay, so you can make these any size you would like to, but I just did it sort of just looked at it by eye and thought, how do I split this up so I don't get two of the same, but then I still had a little bit left over here at the end. So I started off by doing them at, I think I did one at 5. Let's do 4.5 just for fun, just to show that it's not all about copying somebody else's work. You just make your own. Okay, I'm going to cut that. The only thing I don't like about this cutter is it doesn't cut all of the way because of that extra little score part. All right, so I'll just set that there for now. And then the second piece, that one was 4.5. Let's do this one at, say, I don't know, let's say 5.5, because then you can see this leaves this much for the little extra page part. But that almost seems too wide for that extra page part. So let's just move it up to about 5 and maybe 5 3/4. Let's try that. Okay, great. I don't know about you guys, what you use for your cutting, but this is kind of a slick little thing. So now what you're going to have is one little bookmark shaped piece that's about 1 3/4 inches left over, and then you've got 2 that are pretty similar, but that'll give you a nice mixture. Okay, Since this cardstock, this scrapbook paper cardstock was so thick, I thought scoring it was a good idea. And so I scored them up at about 4 inches. So I'm just going to make a mark just because it makes it easier for me to score them and get them even. I tried using this paper and not scoring it, and it was kind of a mess. 1, 2, 3, 4. So pretty simply, we can just stick this in here. Oh, I made the line on the other side. Okay, so you line that up at 4 inches, and then I'm very careful with this paper. Made a nice little score to not score it too much. This paper is a textured paper. It's like a linen on one side and more of a flat on the other side. So I'm going to fold this up so that the smooth side is on the inside and just give that a nice little crease. Alrighty, and then I don't want to fold it right at this edge, so I'm going to give it just maybe 1/4 of an inch. And you don't really need to measure that when you can just look and eyeball it. There we go. And then we're going to fold it down. And for some reason, this one looks like it's a little longer than, I must have got my measurements off, but that's okay, this will work. Alrighty, and so now the second one, we're gonna do the same thing. We're going to do it at 4. I'm gonna maybe bump it up to 4.5 this time, just because that one seemed a little bit long. And it's okay if these are a little bit different. They're not supposed to match, they're supposed to coordinate. So again, I'm going to put the smooth side on the inside. Very nice. Now we're going to just go just above there, score that, and do this. I am very careful about not using the bone folder so much on this paper because it tends to leave a mark. And as you can, I don't know if you can really see that, but it definitely does show a lot of white. And then with this, here's the nice part. It doesn't even matter how, if you measure this, I just stick it in and wherever it looks like it's about half, I just give it a little score and see how this paper just tears. So I'm going to have to whack off just that. Oh, that wasn't good. Knock off a little bit of that edge, which sometimes is a little bit tough when you only have that little piece left, so you have to really pin it down with your cutter. Let's see, that looks like that's going to be a little better, and it doesn't matter how thin it is, it's just to be made as a page flip. And then you'll have this little extra bit. Very simply, this is a very simple project with what I think are some really nice results. Okay, so then we can get rid of the cutter, and we need to make this nice little, let's flip this one over, make this nice little point. And the easiest way I have found to do it is to find the middle of your paper. Very simply, okay, so this paper looks like it's 5 3/4. If you don't want to do the math, here's a nice little trick how to find the center. You grab a piece of just random paper that you're going to eventually use, and you just make it the same size as your paper, so you don't have to do the math or you don't have to fiddle around with it. So then what you do is you just make sure that that's about the same width. You fold this in half very nicely. I put a little mark just because it's hard to see sometimes. And then very simply you line the paper back up. This is also good if you don't have a ruler handy and you just have a straight edge. Whereas you can do this whole project by just using this little piece to do all of your cutting or all of your tracing to make the flaps. So if you don't have a ruler, this is a nice little trick to get your halfway point. Okay, and so next part is you want to make your point. And so I was going down about 2 inches, 1 3/4 inches. So you can either do you can either measure it like this, or you can use the paper trick method if you don't have a ruler, and you just eyeball it and say, okay, I think I want it to go down that far. You draw a little line and then you come to this side so it matches. Almost the same as when you're making tags. And then we'll just do that instead of using the ruler. So then you can just use your flippy part that's going to go on your page flip over and draw your lines. Nice thing about doing these little projects for your journals or for your whatever you're going to use these for, there's no precise need to be perfect. I'll give this just a quick little snip. Keep your corners for a later project. And that's one and done. If you're going to mass produce these and you make them all the same size, what's really nice is you can then just use this as your template. All right, let's use that trick again. All righty. And this one I don't want to rip the paper, so I'm just going to mark it because it looks like it's going right here on this nice little line. So I'm just going to fold it based on that line. If you can see. You see what I'm doing? Just folding it based on that line. Okay, so then again, you just give yourself a little mark, line the paper back up between this mark and that mark, and then you'll see right where your mark goes. All right, now we can find our little bit. Let's try this completely without a ruler. That looks like it's about a good distance, so we'll draw the line there. We'll sneak over to this side and we'll line it up. That goes there. Go ahead and use your flip over part. I must not have marked it very dark. Alrighty. And then again, you just line this up and draw it to the point. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. This isn't shop class or architect's class where everything has to be perfect, because once you put all those fantastic lace bits and doily bits and everything on it, it's going to cover up any little mistakes that you might make. Alrighty. Okay, there we go. Now what you'll have is you have your larger piece, your medium piece, and you have your little flippy bit. So the next part, what we need to do is everybody's favorites, which would be the inking part. And I'm not going to ink all 3 of them on the video just because I think we all know how to ink, but let's just do one of them and then I can go back and re-ink. But it's crucial that on this paper, if you have white, it doesn't show a lot on the edges, so you're not going to get that really true vintage grungy feel on the edges. But this just is nice because it just gets rid of those white bits. And sometimes you have to go both ways. And sometimes with this white core paper, I don't know if you can, yeah, there you go. Can you see that? Where you've got those little spots. That's because when you fold this paper, sometimes you get the white showing through because the paper will split a little bit. So what I do is I just really ink it up a lot and cover that up and make sure that that's not showing. If it's really showing and you can't get the ink to get in there, I think my ink pad needs a little help. either a new one or a little spritz or something. So let's just quickly ink these up. But if you happen to do it and you just can't get rid of all that white with your inker, your ink blender, a little piece of washi tape over that would be adorable as well. When I'm done inking this one, I will show you. I scored one of the pieces just a little bit too much, thinking with it being this thick that I really needed to get after it and score it so that I would get a really nice fold. Well, it kind of split the paper a little bit, and I thought, well, gosh, I really don't want to start the project over and cut another whole piece just to make the match set. So I got creative and used a little bit of washi tape to fix it. I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, so I think I've got all the edges. I'm going to do this. I just like when you open it, you get that little line in here, so that when you open this, you get just that tiny little crease. I don't do the whole thing because some people don't like the little line in the middle, and it doesn't show up a lot, but it does get rid of the white lines. All right, and I'm not going to bore all of you by inking all of these, but eventually I'll go back and I will ink them after we're done with this project. All of these were inked. If you look, these were all inked. The lighter paper shows it better, but it's just to cover up that white on the inside. This is the one I was talking about. I just popped a little washi tape down here because this I scored way too many times, thinking I really needed it. This was, I think, the first or second one I made, and it just kind of split right here in the middle. So I added a little extra glue, some washi tape that I thought matched nicely, and I also put it so that it's on the inside. So I wrapped it all the way around so that it's nice and sturdy, and it matches, and I thought it looked nice and didn't have to throw the project away. Alrighty, back to this project. Okay, so we're back to these three pieces. Now, some of the things that I've used are doilies, lace tablecloth that I spent time cutting up, and you can find these at thrift stores, garage sales. I mean, you can even, I don't even know if you can buy them new anymore, but Facebook Marketplace sometimes has them. People are trying to get rid of them from estate sales, and they're really fun. Be careful about the super lacy ones or the ones that are made out of a polyester. Those don't tend to cut as well, and they aren't, I don't think they're quite as nice. But pretty much anything that has a large shape in it will do the trick. A couple weeks ago, I was spending some time in front of the TV, and I cut up a few table runners and some other doily pieces that I had been collecting. So these are all cotton, and they're a little bit of an off-white. These are a thinner cotton. These are like a lace weight cotton. But again, I cut all the rondelles. If they tend to be too big, very simply just cut these little strings off here, and then you would just have this circular one. Or if you really want a tiny one, you can cut that little one off and be real careful about how you cut it, because then you would have a whole circle. So doilies can be fun. Here's some more little ones that I got from the same tablecloth. And like I was saying, here's one that looks like, I think it was from a curtain. And you can see this is one of the more polyester-y, cheaper, not hand-done ones versus how yummy that one looks. So these are still useful, but these are what I'm going to use mostly for this project. And I tried to get a nice mix of off-white and white. I also had these that I thought would work for the project, but they just were a little bit too big. And I did not want to waste and cut just those little pieces out, but I think they just looked a little, they took over the whole project. So we'll use those for something else. So we will set these aside. The other thing that we're going to use is these little strips. You can see a little hole in it. These were actually tabs from a little lace curtain that I found. And this was the tab part where you put the rod through right here and they hang. these were just so pretty. I thought, well, I'm going to cut these off and save them. And I thought maybe something about, maybe I could hang a little something from there. But then I started this project and I thought they looked really great. Here, it almost looks like a vase with a flower in it. I thought that was the look. That was a nice look. I still don't know what I want to do with that hole, but for now we're just going to leave it. Okay, let's just construct one of these. The other thing that I used were brads, and I have a different assortment. I've got some bright gold, bright silver, and then a bunch of these little different sized, more boho, vintage, brass, and other colors. So, alrighty. The other part that I used was some music paper that I have this punch that again I found somewhere, and it punches the whole flower, the leaves, the middle part, and you're supposed to stack the three of those to make a stacked flower, but instead I just punched out some music bits, and let's see, on some of them I used the back of the music, which was actual words, and then I used the tiny little flower with just the scraps that were left over when I cut that little piece off and the little corner pieces. And so everything other than the lace bits were used from that one 12 by 12 piece. Okay, simple. We cut it and now we've inked it, and it's, I mean, you could put it in just like this if you wanted to, but let's make it a little more bohemian style, romantic lace style. Okay, no measuring really involved. It's pretty simple. You just want to grab what pieces you want to go on there. Let's see, I'm going to take, this one's the bigger of the two. Let's see, I'm going to try this little piece. What do you think of that? It's almost a heart or a little dangly bit. Let's see if I can stretch it, make it a little longer. This was just something I cut. It was one of the shapes that were left over in that little tablecloth, I think it was. And I'm just putting it so it's just at the point. Just these little bits are going to hang over a bit. And don't worry if that's a little, let's see if I can, see how that's not completely even. It's not even going to show. There's no glue or sewing involved in this project either. All right, this is off-white, and let's use then a white one. We'll just pop that right there. And see how that nicely just covers everything up. And then, let's see, let's try one of these. And you just have to be careful, because if it gets too thick, your brad may be too short to go through there. So I could put another little piece on there and be done with it that way, but I wanted to add one of these little music pieces on there. I kind of liked a little music piece. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up a little. Got to ink everything up if you want to do the boho style. And then I take my little pokey bit. It's like an awl, but it was like a cheap version. I think I got it at the Dollar Tree. Because if you punch a hole in this, it'll be too big. So then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the middle and punch. And then I'm just going to try to wiggle it around and make the hole just a little bit bigger. You can see that. So that the brad will go through and not tear through everything. Now here's how simple this really is. We're going to take this brad. I thought I would choose one that's a kind of a brassy color to go with the gold brass color of the paper. And what we're going to do is make sure that your music notes are facing upright. And the only reason I can tell is there's some words right here. But otherwise, I guess it doesn't matter which way your notes are going, just maybe not doing them sideways. All right, so that's right in the middle. This has a obvious hole in it. This has a nice center hole in it. Like that. And then this, you want to kind of see where you want this all to cover. So just eyeball it and what you think. I mean, some people might like it way up here. You might want the whole thing covered. I'm going to do maybe halfway. and try to center it. So I'm going to try to center it on this little spot right there. Pretty simple. Everything looks like it's straight up. Now you have a nice little cluster that's ready to go. And then I just flip it upside down. And then, oops, I forgot a step. So then what I do is I think, okay, I want it right about there. Make this easier. Make it so I want it maybe right there. I don't want it to hang off, but I don't want it up here. So how about right there? And I'll just give it like a little push, which will leave a tiny little indent in the paper. And if you have good vision, you'll be able to see that it's right there. Make sure it's centered. So all I'm doing is right where I put it is about the right height. Centered on that point, and if you're off a little bit, it's okay. Stick your poker through. I wiggle it around a little bit just so that the brad doesn't start to fold the paper, because if your brad is not complete, see how mine is a little bit, I don't know if you can even see that, mine's a little bit separated. There you go. It might wreak havoc on the paper, so let's gently wiggle it in there. There we go. Okay, make sure everything is nice and straight. Perfect. Then keep your finger on it and flip it over. And you're going to want to try to make sure that your brad is opening sideways. I think it just looks nicer if it's opening sideways. And then I smoosh it down like that. And that's that. You can use your circle punch and take a little piece and glue it inside if you want to cover that up. But it's not necessary if you don't want to. I might go back and pull a little circle punch with some cute words on it. All right, and so there we go. That's number 1 is done. Pretty simple. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do it on this one as well. And again, this will be super easy to take apart if I need, when I go back to re-ink it. So I would normally ink it beforehand, but I don't want to bore everybody here. Okay, so that one we started with a beige background. Let's start with one of these white ones. And that looks really nice there. And then I like these little circle ones are pretty nice. That looks pretty fun. And let's just do a little music piece so it matches a little bit. We'll give that a quick little ink up. Okay, again, find the center, just poke it right through and wiggle it just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to use the same brad, just smaller. So it's the same tone, it's just a little bit smaller because this is a smaller cluster. So we've got that through there. And again, we put it right through this hole and right through this hole. And, oh, I can tell which way is up on this one only because there's a 1 and a 2. Okay. And then for measuring, again, there's no real measurements on this. It's just whatever you think is nice. You can put it down here right at the point, which would look more like this. Or I like to put them up just a tiny bit so that most of it is on the upper flap. And again, you can make your folds anywhere you want so that you can either have a longer fold or a shorter fold on that top flip over. Again, little hole, and you only want to go through, if you notice, I'm only going through this piece, so be careful you don't go through the whole project. Okay, and again, we open it up. Make sure it's going in the right direction. Some of these brads, they're so tiny that the little legs on the bottom they tend to separate. And so I'm going to just try and get a different one that the legs are closer together. So let's try that again so that they'll go through this. Sometimes they're just the metal isn't very strong, and being bounced around they tend to separate a little. And then with this little tiny hole, you need them to be together. There we go. Okay, now again, put your finger right on the brad, flip it over, and then work on separating it. If you're having a hard time getting them separated, you can use your little tool to get them separated, because they are a bit sharp. And sometimes they don't want to come apart, and other times they just want to be apart. And this one's going to be stubborn with me today. Okay, now if you've noticed, they're starting to open and they're not in the right position. It looks like they're going to be up and down. So what I'm going to do is just make it purposely all the way up and down instead of it being at an angle. And then lay it down and really smush it. Sometimes I'll even use the back end of my inker, and especially when it's super thick. All right. And now I just adjust it to make sure it's going the right way. This sticks up just a little bit, which I don't have a problem with that. Alrighty, so there is that one. And you can go through with your bone folder carefully and do these, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay these all flat under a couple of large books to get them to lay really flat, because we'll talk about that at the end, about putting a tie on them, like a closure. But I did one, and we'll see that at the end. Let's do this last piece real quick. I'm going to use this little one just because it's a little bit thinner, and if we're going to use it on a page, to tuck on a page, we don't want it too thick. So this is a little thinner, so I thought maybe we'll use that. And then we want to use this little tail part that looks like a snake right there, but when you put this on there, I think it almost looks like a little vase. We have this, and maybe we'll use one of these little, I just put a little bit of ink on this piece of lace just because I liked the brown of it. Just trim off those little doodads a bit. They don't seem, once you separate these cotton ones out from a table runner or a placemat or a blanket or whatever, not a blanket, a bedspread or a tablecloth is the word I'm looking for. They don't tend to really want to fray. They're done pretty well. They're tatted pretty well. Okay, so then we're just going to stack these, and what did we use? We used that. But since these aren't going to be right together, I think I want to use something a little bit bigger and more sparkly. So I think we're going to use this big gold one. Just because this is also one color, let's just add a little bit of shiny. I don't use a lot of these bright gold ones, but I think this will look nice. Okay, so whoops, it's shiny. In the middle of your little flower, and then you'll want to be real careful because there's just that little lacy bit, so just be real careful when you're punching it through. And then with this, if you notice, the top is a little kind of loosey-goosey in its weaving. I just go down 2 or 3 rows and catch it. It's not like you're going to be hanging on it or anything, and that's pretty sturdy right there. Okay, and then I'm going to just hold it up and see. I was trying to measure these so they're not quite all the way at the bottom, but they're not way up here. So it looks like we're right about there. And I'm not a real precise, I'm not a person that tends to make the same thing over and over and over exactly the same. Everything seems to have a little bit of an organic feel to it. Okay, now this brad, if you notice, is really, really thick to go through that little hole. I might, let's see, I might just punch just another little bit of a hole and make it more of like a slot to get that little guy in there, especially if his little legs don't want to pinch through together. Okay, there we go. There we go, we can flip it over. These tend to go open like that. And again, if you want to, you can come back and glue a little something over the top of it if you would like to, so it doesn't get stuck. And probably on these I will, so they don't get hung up on the pages when you're moving them around. All right, and so then what you have is a little over the top page or over the page type. And you could turn this into a hidden paper clip if you wanted to. You could use it as a little tuck here. You could actually tuck it and put a little bit of glue here and just a little bit of glue here and get a, almost make it like a little belly band type thing and slide things in. All right, so now out of one piece of 12 by 12 paper, we have a big flip, a medium flip, and a page. I think those have turned out really, really fun. And the only scrap we had left was, we had these 4 little triangles, which you can use as side tucks or you can use them like a photo holder. And that's the whole scrap that you have from, and the little teeny bit that I trimmed off of here, which was about 1/4 of an inch off of the bottom of here, just because it got mucked up a little bit with that white showing. And so I cut off a little bit. But this is really all you have left, which is nice because projects that don't involve any more paper scraps are kind of favorites for me right now. Okay, well, we're almost done. Let me just show you the one that I did that I thought, well, maybe I'll put a little closure on these. This is a nice little sage green. These I did not use the music note or the words. These I just liked the way they were. Oh, on this one I did. There we go. Okay, so I tried to do a closure so that some of them, if you notice, they pop open a little if you don't have a closure. That's why I'm going to put these under a book. But I thought, well, let's experiment a little, and I thought that looked nice. It was just a little circle punch out of the little corners, and then I took one of the extras out of my paper punch, that little daisy shaped one. I punched that out of it and put that on one side just to give it a little bit of interest. And all I used here was I think it's called butcher's string, just plain cotton string, and just wrapped it around and made it like this. And I'm not sure I like it. It just seems, for what you're going to use this for, if you're going to journal in it or whatever, it just seemed very fussy to have to bring this up. I mean, you can, to bring it up and then wrap it all the way around like this, underneath all of the lacy bits in the corners, and then readjust everything. And maybe I will on some of them. And I mean, I do like the how it turned out kind of opposite, but it just seems not very user-friendly for putting these in journals that I have in my Etsy shop. It just seemed kind of futzy to have to wrap that around. And I tried a couple of different styles, and this was the only one that really worked. I even thought about possibly putting another circle on the back so that you would just wrap it and put it right around here, but then right in the middle of your writing space inside is where that brad is going to come through, and so that wasn't an option either. So I'm still not sold on this. You know, it looks nice. It's a nice little showcase type piece, but I'm not sure I really am sold on that yet. So all right, well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed making these Bohemian I guess they're Bohemian looking flips, trifolds, journaling spots. I guess you could tape a gift card inside of them. You could glue lined paper in them. All kinds of fun with these little doilies and your paper. So hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're inspired to go make a whole bunch of these yourself. So let me know what you thought of them in the comments, and if you liked this video, give me a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much and have a great day. We'll see you soon.